while they leave their stage, we have our final panel for today's event, everybody. That's going to be ably led by Sam Jacob, with alongside them 4 of the most brilliant minds in Australian advances in AI at the moment. Please make Sam welcome as they introduce their panel.
I did say to Martin that this is normally the time for drinks on the programme, so sorry about that. My name's Sam. I'm here hosting the last panel session of the day. I have the best job in the world. Sorry, everybody else. I'm the CEO of Collarts, the Australian College of the Arts. I took staff off for a strategic planning day last year with the aim of writing some fairly corporate goals, and instead we wrote a manifesto which tells you everything you need to know about Collarts. Our manifesto is a series of beliefs. We believe creativity is vital, and never more so than now. We believe that difference is powerful, and that whilst you might be diverse by nature, you have to be inclusive by choice. And we believe that stories change the world. It's lovely to see some of those themes coming through today. Time me. I'm going to try and wrap up what we've heard so far today in 1 minute. Although your 7 hours was well invested. We started with Paul, laser-like focus on students. What's the job your students need doing? Disrupt yourself before somebody else disrupts you. What defines a good life in the future? And don't forget the value of judgment, wisdom, empathy, and sense-making. Pascal challenged us to think about a post-lecture future. And Dan, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Melinda, we've got to move as fast as the world around us. We can use values to redefine productivity. We have an urgent need to end silos, deliver modular content that is radically up to date. Tim and George, go where the students are, get the data, find the insights, listen, act, act, act. Our student support panel said solve the data puzzle together. Remember, complaints are part of listening, and that good admin matters. The student feedback, teachers hold value but are a little negative, and we've all got trust issues. And Lev, the great unlock of the 21st century, aim higher, run faster, engage more broadly, and think more deeply. What a lovely intro to the last panel of the day. Thanks. Danny, I'm going to start with you. Danny, you describe yourself as a molecular biologist by training, a programmer by night, a researcher and faculty developer by day, and an educator at heart. You're also Professor of EdTech at UCID, where you co-chair the university's AI working group. And I've heard you say that we're not thinking far enough into the future. What should we be seeing?
So I was told to be provocative, so here is a provocation. Over afternoon tea, we were talking and we're reflecting that on the conversations of the day. And it feels that sometimes some conversations could have happened about 2 years ago. I said 1 year, other people said 2 years. And so the question, I guess, with all the talk today about kind of moving fast, are we actually moving fast enough? Are we looking far enough in the future? Pascal said the future doesn't look like the past. I think that's really great. It's a great reminder for us of where we need to head. Lev said, you know, it's not just about how we teach, but it's also about what we teach. But I think I want to take it further and say why we teach. Because depending on who you listen to from the AI labs, this thing called artificial general intelligence might be coming, and this is where you have AI which can basically do everything a human can do and potentially better. Why do we teach? Well, why would we teach in that situation when you have AIs that can do everything that's economically valuable for us to do? So we also heard earlier today about the idea of what is being human, what is being a human educator, what is the role of this, why do we do what we do? And I want to kind of contrast that with what is happening. This is all future-looking stuff. We need to be thinking about this potential future, which may be coming in 2 to 5 to 10 years' time, where we may have these super smart AIs. Why are we still teaching? But I want to contrast that with what's happening right now in classrooms and with coordinators who are like, I still want to ban AI in my assignments. And that massive contrast and how to actually bridge that contrast there. And I think one of the issues that we face is that the mechanisms that drive activity for our staff who are on the ground don't reward them thinking about the future. They don't reward them thinking about what it means to be a human educator. We reward them on their research outputs. We don't reward them on how much they care for their students. We've heard a lot about care, humanity, all those kinds of things today. We do not reward on that. And without that, how can we get real and how can we move towards the future?
Thanks, Danny Liu. Susan, you describe yourself as 100% made in China, which I love because I see a garment label every time you say that. You've gone on to have a pretty impressive global footprint, and your university career has come off the back of 15 years of tech experience at some of the global powerhouses, Google, TikTok, Amazon, Canva, and now you're leading for the UK government on digital trade between Australia and the UK. I didn't even know that job existed. I know you're passionate about using your industry experience to amplify change in higher ed. What should we be learning from big tech?
Thank you for the question. Well, I'm true 100% made in China. I have a very cool Chinese name called Xiao Chen, means little dragon. My friends named me Susan after Desperate Housewife. I wish I have ChatGPT then. I could still have a friend. What we should learn from the tech industry, on top of my head, 3 things. I'm glad the VC mentioned TikTok. What do we like about it? We do nothing with TikTok. You put your phone in front of yourself, start to play itself. So number 1, simplicity. How can we make AI so simply for staff and students and understand the users and make it self-play or something easier for them to adopt? That's the first thing. Second, the culture of celebration. So in the corporate world, we celebrate quite often. In Canva, every quarter, if we have a big win of the customer or something, we celebrate. We go to horse riding or through the axe if we're really stressed. But in university, we celebrate maybe every 3 or 4 years. When you finish PhD, you finally get onto the stage for 3 seconds, shake the hand, and turn. It's so long, and students, staff went through all this battle, right? The disputes, the heart, the stress, the payment, everything. We should celebrate more often in the course. So the culture of celebration, how can we incorporate that for students? And that will bring the level of joy for everyone. Number 3, social sharing. If some of the university did really well, they will tell their friend, hey, come to study in this university. So on Amazon, you read all the book reviews. So people will review your university as well. So social sharing is something we should tap into.
Fabulous. I did hear axe throwing then, didn't I? Yeah, okay, good. This panel comes with an OHS warning. Jason, you're an internationally recognised scholar and leader in learning sciences, educational psychology and educational technology, currently at UQ, and your research with the Learning, Instruction and Technology Lab focuses on the cognitive, metacognitive and emotional mechanisms of learning, primarily with technology and digital learning environments. I've heard you say that we're having the wrong conversations about AI in education and that makes you worry for your kids, all of our kids, and for the future. Tell us more.
Thanks, Sam. Let me start by quoting Rosemary Luckin, who was talking about AI in education when I was still in primary school. I don't want to cast any aspersions about Rosemary's age, but she has been doing this for a long time, long before there was ChatGPT. And she said, and I think she's right, we need to learn fast but act slow. Learn fast but act slow. So what have we learned? So let me ask all of you here, you're at a conference on AI, to have a think about, I'm assuming many of you have used a generative AI tool of some description. Did you find yourself compelled to say please and thank you to that tool? Right, a lot of people nodding in the room, a lot of laughs, think about that online. This points to a fundamental difference in the human-machine relationship that we have with this technology that we have not had in the past. It is a tool, but it acts like a peer or a collaborator. So essentially, if we hear that 90% or more of our students are using these tools, they're essentially doing group assignments now. It just so happens that the group assignment is with the smartest possible peer that they could have, including leaving all of the work to that smarter peer to do. All right? So when we fundamentally look at the mechanisms here, we're talking about a very different type of technology. From there, we then have to think about, well, what are the implications of that for what we're doing in education? Now, my brilliant former PhD student, Zhang Yang, looked at the dynamics of what happens in group assignments. They are enormously complicated. They require skills at multiple different levels because you're not just doing the task, but you have to figure out how to do that task with another agent. You have to negotiate various bits within that task. And many of those skills are the same sorts of skills that students need to have to use AI well. Right? So they need to understand their own learning, and they need to be able to understand and navigate an agent that is interacting with them, even though it's still a tool. Right? So that it's very complex and sophisticated. Now, if you think about the way that our education systems are currently set up, and some of the work that I did towards the end of last year for the Department of Education was to try and look at how this was all fitting and preparing students for the age of AI, we're still focused a lot on getting stuff into the head, right? Particularly in primary and secondary contexts, right? There's still a lot of testing, there's a lot of exams, there's NAPLAN, and a lot of it is still focused on that. There is not as much focused on how do I become a good learner and how does that learning translate when I have to do that with other agents, whether those agents are people or machines. So when I say that I think we need to have a different conversation, I see a lot of the discussion about what we do about AI moving further into the direction of creating additional structure, doing more exams, focusing more on cramming stuff into heads and less about those complex skills. And there's been a lot of talk about this sort of older notion of soft skills here today, but I'm talking very specifically about a skill that is a co-regulation of learning with an agent that happens to be a machine. It's very complex, and I think we need to get on with focusing on that as a critical skill that students are going to need both for their learning and for their future.
Thank you, Jason. We might come back to that. Phil, hi, neighbour. You're a seasoned AI leader with experience across academia and industry as well, and also have a career that spans 3 continents. You're currently head of artificial intelligence at Macquarie, and I know you think that's a role that makes sense of everything that you've done to date, a bit like me. And you're also an author and a keynote speaker advising enterprises on harnessing AI responsibly for competitive advantage. An AI strategy can look a lot like chasing shiny tech. What's your advice on where universities should really focus?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of strategies over the years, and oftentimes they can look like chasing shiny toys, and we shouldn't be chasing shiny toys. We should build the blueprints. And so what I mean with that is we want to focus on what I think 3 main things. One is an investment in the people, first and foremost, because AI is not just for programmers and data scientists and engineers. AI is for everyone. For our students, for our staff, for our leaders. And they all have to, must build AI literacy to be part of that innovative power that we can unlock. And that's not just an inspirational statement that I like to put out, it's a strategic move, because ultimately an AI-capable campus can move faster, can make better and smarter decisions, and most importantly, can adopt to change much more quickly and with confidence. The second thing is investing in meaningful efficiencies. Because AI can do a lot of things, and we've heard that over the day-to-day, automating or streamlining workflows, personalizing content, but we shouldn't lose sight on the most important thing that does. It's freeing up time for the most profound thing we have, and that is human connection. So I have an example here that my daughter gave me before I left to the airport yesterday, a goodbye daddy card. And there's nothing more profound than having a different human spending some of their valuable time in caring for you and about you. And Charlie, when you see that, I love you. Ellie, you too. So we can make that connection with our students, with our co-workers and colleagues, a much larger part of our work, which is amazing. And then lastly, we also need to invest in the long-term impact, not the short-term benefits or the short-term hype, because the technology will change and keep changing. That means we need to be grounded in valuable and great challenges to solve, and in the values that we hold dearly and want to apply to finding solutions to these challenges. because that will ultimately let us lead with ethics and lead with accessibility and lead with the kind of, or lead into a world that we want to live in and want our children to live in later as well. So these are the three things that a strategy should include.
What does that say about how you would measure success?
Great question, and I think we're all still figuring out a little bit what success looks like in a world that is so quickly changing. I think there's not one measure of success. It's figuring out how do we get the voice of the students heard? How do we measure against their experience? Can we provide them with what they need to enter the workforce sufficiently and successfully? And also care about our staff and the organization. So staff well-being, staff happiness, the way we work, how is that changing from today? Do we feel supported? Do we feel empowered? And also just looking at the bottom line of our organization, because we also want to make sure that there's financial sustainability that allows us to grow and to work for the next 50, 100, 500 years to create graduates that can transform their lives.
Yes, I'll be retired by then, but yes.
You say that now.
Susan, I'm going to ask you this question knowing that I'm asking you this question in front of your Vice-Chancellor, which is tricky, right? But just pretend Theo's not there pointing a camera at you right now. Your university wants to be AI first. What does that even mean? And are you getting there?
I'm not going to repeat what Theo and Shannon mentioned before. As an international student, came to Australia 15 years ago, if I see the statement, bold AI strategy, what I hear is this university want to grow with the student together. Regardless it's AI now or something else in the future, this is a university willing to step outside the comfort zone, thinking just as a tech company and evolve with students. And I hear the honest, I hear the vulnerability. Because students, they are young adults, right? I think someone mentioned the trust issue always there. I think research said 60% of the students self-identified cheating, regardless there's AI tools or not. So I guess the point is, the university, when we put the AI strategy in front of people, it's showing a mindset of change, and it shows the commitment to grow and consider students not just a customer, but also a partner, where actually the parents are customer, right? But the students are the one benefit from it. But I think this is a great statement for a lot of people out there. And I think I mentioned to someone, say, this is my dream job. As a researcher, we need to define what is a dream job. A dream job is something that gets you really excited out of the bed every single day. And people say you usually find something you're really excited about and enjoy doing it. And then you can either get joy out of it or make a lot of impact out of it. I think being an AI-led university brings the joy. I feel like this is what I'm helping my future kids, or maybe feel your kids, to grow into the future where I find it's safe, it's responsible, it's fun for them, and we grow with them together.
Talking of fun, and what do you think being AI first means for the work culture that we should have? I've heard you talk about being good at sucking at things. Tell us more about that.
I think tech companies are really good at it, right? But then thinking about it, in tech company, if we fail, we probably just lost a proportion of the profit. And I understand the risk is really high in higher education. Students are human beings. We are risk their future, so you can't really take it very lightly. And now with the UK government, I start to understand why sometimes we say, oh, it's functioning really slow, why there's bureaucracy. Because it is taxpayers' money. It's a British taxpayer. I didn't spend your guys' money. So you have to be really, really cautious about it, right? So I think you really need to think about it, but at the same time, you need to take action and be able to show your willingness to try. Students will be able to get it. I think student, just like the TikTok reel, they will really attract to those honest with and say, hey, we did this wrong, but we're willing to change it for better, and then they will be able to grow with you together.
Thank you. Jason, you touched on this earlier. You've got a particular interest in self-regulated learning, with, in opposition to, and despite artificial intelligence. What does it mean to focus on helping students to be better self-regulated learners?
Thanks, Sam. So some of the work that I've been doing with my team, who do the hard yards and have to sit in the lab and day after day and collect the data for this, we've also been working closely with Dragan Gasovic from Monash University. And the point of this is try to understand the mechanisms that sit underneath all of this. So a typical thing that we would do is that we ask students to come in, we give them a mini assignment to do, we say we want you to use AI to complete this assignment within a period of time, we capture everything that they do on the screen, we play it back to them, and then we ask them, why did you do this? What did you think you were doing here, or what was happening here? Now from that we've learned a few things. Obviously, as you've heard, there's a lot of variation in the way that students do this. Many of them will use generative AI like a Google search. There are a proportion of them, even though they're being observed in a lab, will use the Gen AI to just do the whole task for them. They don't seem to care. But there are also a proportion of students who engage in very sophisticated approaches to using these tools. I think what's coming out of that, and what I think is really important, is partly what I talked about before, is that machines are starting to meet us where we are. So, sorry, Phil, and controversial, a disagreement on a panel. I don't believe that the AI literacy piece is the most important thing here. The reason I say that is that when we look at what these students are doing, these are students who are good learners first, and then are good learners with AI second. Now, the reason that I say that is because when we think about the machines meeting us where we are, then one of the things that I learned early on, and I'm certainly not a super user anywhere near the capability that Danny is, but if I don't know how to prompt it, I ask it. What prompt should I give you to do X, Y, and Z? The good students will then take a prompt from one generative AI tool, put it into another one, and say, what prompt should I give this other tool though, so that I can, and they'll move those things backwards and forwards. That's not a technical capability. That's largely started from the fact that they understand themselves as learners first. And these are the same students who previously were able to kind of navigate the complex environment that they have around them, right? When do I use a video to help my learning? When do I talk to a peer, right? So these are students who have got that kind of very clear sense of who they are as learners and what's most effective for their learning, and they've just picked up this new tool and slotted it in. And it hasn't required a huge amount of technical capability to do that because of the way that these things operate. So that's why we think that a lot of this is coming back to learning how to learn being such a critical component in all of this. And like I said before, that emphasis has dropped off to some degree across, again, thinking about across all education sectors. They do a great job of it in early childhood, right? Phil, you've got young kids, right? Even in Sesame Street, I wonder, what if, let's try. That is such a powerful message for a 4-year-old. My daughter goes on about it all the time, right? It's a really powerful message about her learning and who she is as a learner. I wonder, what if, let's try. If something gets hard, I've got a way of navigating my way through it. Now, for many year or 7 or 8 students, because of the way that our systems are set up, if they get stuck on something, the signal that they're getting from the system is, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I don't belong here, and then we're seeing the ramifications of that over longer time periods. So there's something fundamental about being good learners here that I think is critical. Yes, having some technical capability is important, but the human part, because machines are acting more like agents, I think, and our data is supporting, has become more critical than ever. And a 1-hour workshop during O Week is not going to fix it.
No. A 1-hour workshop during O Week has never fixed anything. Danny, as well as all the other things I've already talked about, and being dad to 8-year-old twins, which I discovered today, you also lead the Cogniti AI team through the University of Sydney, and badge that as proudly putting educators in the driving seat of AI. Why is that important? What does it say about autonomy and trust?
So just a disclaimer, we're not trying to sell anything here. We give away Cogniti to people for free, so not trying to sell anything. So trust has come around a little bit today in the discussions, but what has also come around is the need to kind of bring educators on board with these things. And what we found early on, and even now, is educators don't trust when students are using ChatGPT because they don't have visibility, they don't have control over what students are doing in there. And students themselves, we saw just with the feedback one, for example, students also don't really trust just those general purpose AIs because they're not grounded in whatever the assignment is or whatever the subject or the course is. And so what we're trying to do through Cogniti, and there are lots of other platforms out there like custom GPTs from OpenAI and GEMS from Gemini and PlayLab and MindJoy and all those kinds of things. All of these tools are aiming to basically give educators control over the underlying AI so they can actually steer this in a way that is educationally meaningful. So I'll give you an example. One of our English literature academics, they built an essay question refiner for their students. And so they basically got into the AI, they used plain language to say, your role is to help my students refine their essay topic. These are the parts of the rubric I want them to focus on. These are the things that make a good essay question and a bad essay question. And she would give this agent via Cogniti to her students, and this would basically mean that her students would then ask the agent to refine their essay questions, which means when they come to her in class, she can have much richer conversations with them because they've already refined their essay question. And so it's not meant to be replacing her, but it's meant to be augmenting what she can do 24/7, one-to-one with the students in an educationally meaningful way. So going to what Jason was saying before, it's not about AI literacy first and foremost, it's about educational literacy, how people learn and what is helpful for them, and educators know this. And giving educators that ability to build these AIs that they can trust, that their students can then trust, has been really powerful.
Yes, I agree with everything you say, mostly. Susan?
Which bits don't you disagree with?
I never like to align 100% with anybody. It's not personal. Susan, your passion and curiosity for EdTech led you to finish a PhD in 3.5 years, which is pretty impressive, whilst working and having 2 kids, even more impressive. And now you're in what you call your dream job as VC's fellow at La Trobe, where you get to put your research into action. Very smart. What is an educol, and why are you inspired to help people become educols?
Thank you for the question. So it's EDUKOL. If you are on TikTok, you all know KOL is Key Opinion Leaders. So in 2018, I quit my comfort job at Google and joined ByteDance in China. No one know about them because they just acquired Musical.ly at the end of 2017. And the mission for our team is to rebrand them as TikTok and go global. And then during that two years, I worked with a lot of influencers. No one know about them at that time, but now they have millions of followers. But I always wonder, I have my primary teacher and high school teacher I always love. How can I turn them into an influencer? I feel it's a shame. It's only me knowing how good they are. They help me to become who I am today. But they can help so many people. So that's all the inspiration I want. I want all the other students benefit from it. So that's become my research topic. And at that time in UW, there's one professor say, I only recruit a female PhD student because, some of the guys I really lack off and just play games at night and not really focus. So I message and say, will you take me on board, but I still have a full-time job and I'm very driven and this is my proposal. So that's how I started. Example of EDUKL, like Andrew Wu, the co-founder of deeplearning.ai, and also Khan Academy, right? Khan, he started by tutoring his family friends, and then he went to YouTube and talked to all of the colleagues at Google before, and that's very inspiration. So all these dots I connected for my PhD journey, and I feel like my professor also taught me forwards throughout these 3 years. No paper, no future. Yeah. So my goal is literally turn all of them into different influencers. Maybe I can implement this with the AI buddies in La Trobe. And in China, there's not just DeepSeek. There's also other technology. In primary schools, they already implement a lot of AI technology in the classroom. There's no news. You will be able to search overseas here. And what they call is like little language model. How cute. They don't need that many data because, they're still learning. And I think that's a future. I just really want to make educators cool again. We are also human beings. The students see that and hurt our feelings, right? We are their lighthouse. We should have the confidence in ourselves. And like the research, Margaret, they shared, students still trust the feedback from the educator, even though they use AI or not. They still trust it. We should tap into it and really make the educator cool again. And we can do this together. That's why I did my PhD. And going to realize with your 2030 plan. Let's make it happen.
I'm going to get you a baseball cap with MECA on it. Make educators cool again. For the next time I see you at a conference. That's fabulous. Phil, you talk about pushing the boundaries of jagged university frontiers. Are you also a poet? For the benefit of students, what does that mean in practical terms?
Yeah, I'm only a poet if I have access to an LLM that helps me being a poet. What it means, so pushing the boundaries of the jagged frontier and even finding the jagged frontier in your organization, your university, it describes the concept of understanding what you can do with AI in your context, the tasks it can help with, but also what's behind the frontier, where you shouldn't use it or you can't use it. And there are multiple research studies that have come out where if you apply it to the wrong context, it actually decreases the productivity, efficiency, well-being. So you need to be aware, or every organization needs to build this internal understanding and capability to navigate that frontier and apply and deploy AI in a responsible way within the boundaries. There's one foundational move that you need to do, that every organization, in my opinion, needs to do to enable that at all, and that is get people hands-on tools. You cannot discuss where the boundary is. You need to start experimenting and feeling it out, where it applies well and where it shouldn't apply. And to do that, it needs to be good leadership, strong leadership, that embraces AI and makes it cool to use AI to experiment, even though there's a lot of uncertainty in the beginning. So making sure that we empower our staff, we empower our leadership as well, with the tools that they need, with the time that is necessary to start exploring, start experimenting, start failing, but also start finding out where it's a great thing to explore and to deploy AI, and then sharing that with the other colleagues who do something similar. And this is what unlocks innovation, not through policy documents or longer discussions, but by getting hands-on tools and finding the use cases that really matter and that really work with today's tech. We don't need to talk about what might be in the future. There's so much innovation capacity to be unlocked in any organization today. It's about creating that culture of confidence and acceptance that we can just go out and do the Sesame Street actions to find out what we should do.
There's been a few conversations today where we've edged towards ethics. And I didn't tell you I was going to ask this, but I'm interested in, I think we're not going to naturally be any better at ethics for AI than we are at ethics for anything else. And so being better at ethics full stop seems like good prep for being better at AI ethics. How do you do that? How do we raise, for want of a better word, ethical literacy in our institutions? What could that look like? Any of you want to take that?
I have one example where I think, and the rest can think about the answers while I'm doing. The one example that I find very important, thinking about ethics, what is ethical? What is okay to use AI for? And we will have to, as a human society, think about that very deeply, because the AI will get smarter and smarter and more proliferated, and we want to make sure that we don't end up on the wrong side of things. A practical example is anything that has to do with automated decision making, I think needs to have ethical awareness of the impact a decision has on someone's life, or the potential impact, the potential negative impact we might have on someone's lives. Again, we need to understand what AI can do, how it does, how to trust it, what to do with outcomes, the reasoning models that are now coming out. What is the reasoning behind it? They're still predicting tokens and putting out tokens. So if we put it at use cases that I hear often, not just in the university space, but also generally in an enterprise context, about hiring new people in the university context, admissions, we should not, from an ethical standpoint, let an AI decide whether or not someone is rejected from university, because that has a potential adverse effect, huge adverse effect on their life. And we can't trust the technology yet, because it's not flawless. We can't have technology run loose on things just because it makes it so much easier and it's so much quicker, and we don't need to deal with that anymore. So we need to figure out, and government and legislation and regulation will have to step in there as well to draw lines in the sand saying these things are high risk, have a capable human in there. It's fine to support and do some pre-work and think about it as if I hired an assistant that is smart, but not really. What would I let that person do so that we don't accidentally get to a point where a lot of those biases from large language models are exposed to decisions that we can't revert?
I love the idea that our yeses are clear when our nos are clear. And so what we say yes to should always be complemented by what we've said no to. That's great. Jason, you've got a lovely kind of thread in your career. People might not know that you started out as a chef. Everyone went, ooh, tasty. Working in professional kitchens and overseeing apprentices. And so kind of immersed in both the profession and education. And that led you to a psychological science degree, which led you then to be passionate about education. So you've kind of fallen up to learning. And like me, I think you believe in the power of education to change lives, and maybe not like me, I cry at every graduation ceremony and try not to sit on the stage so that I can have a good sob up the back of the hall. And so passionate about what the potential is of education to change the world. And so if we reframe AI as a kind of human challenge rather than a technology challenge, what do you think we should be focusing on?
Oh boy. I actually didn't think we would get to this question, but you've done a great job in hosting the panel, Sam. Well done. Look, I think I keep coming back to the necessity to have system-wide change, and partly going back to the question about ethics. Michael Henderson and I were in a room where they were figuring out the schools framework for AI, which obviously had a strong ethical component to it. I think for me, the key to getting that kind of system change is trying to talk across sectors more. I mean, there are 206 higher education providers or so in Australia. There are over 9,000 schools. So the problem is different, but it is a problem at a scale. We can learn a lot from that. So I think for me, the path forward here is for us, you know, I can say as a researcher, as a teacher, as somebody who works in higher education, to be working with the other education sectors because they're grappling with very similar problems for very similar reasons at different scales, talking with the tech companies and working together. I think largely most of the conversations that I've had with people from tech companies, we all want the same thing at the end here. We want high quality student learning, and of course involving our students in those conversations as well. I think whatever the future might end up looking like, that should be a conversation rather than it being a very kind of specific direction for that. My worry is that if any part of that drops off, the agenda gets taken away from us and the tech bros come in, and whatever the future of education looks like will be dictated by them. And that terrifies me. And with a lot of the funding being taken out of UNESCO and the OECD because of Trump and that moron Elon Musk, we are now in a situation where there is less international collaboration on some of these issues, and it has been fairly obvious even within the last few weeks from what I'm hearing that there is a very strong push by this tech bro block to now get in and take over what we're doing, and that really deeply concerns me. The only way that we can address and push back against that, I think, is together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The world has gone to hell in a handbasket. Danny, you didn't start in a professional kitchen as a chef, but you did have an obsession with potato growing, and watched your folks grow potatoes at home, and that led you to be curious and to study science. I love that. Science gave you a passion for teaching, so similarly, you've ended up with this passion for education through a kind of circuitous route. You're a multiple national and international teaching award winner, and now you help teachers teach more effectively. What are the big mindset shifts that you think we need to make facing the future?
So we mentioned before at the beginning how reward and recognition mechanisms aren't right. And so I like alliteration, so I'm going to give you a few alliteration things. We need to shift from publications to people as universities. We need to reward people work as opposed to publication work. Jason also mentioned before, how every individual assignment with AI is now a group assignment. And it's interesting because often we see when we hear people starting to experiment with AI, we often say, I use the AI to draft a rubric for me. I use the AI to write my assignment for me. I use the AI to summarize a text for me. Those are all uses of AI where you see the AI as a workhorse for you. But I think the more powerful way to see AI is like those students who truly see AI as a partner as collaborator. And so another kind of double P alliteration thing for you is shifting from a mindset of AI as a peon, which is there to kind of produce stuff for you and crops that you eat, to AI as a partner, which is a collaborator with you. So that's an interesting one.
Not a potato?
I should have done that, actually. And another one is kind of thinking about if we and our students see AI as a peon, it's there to produce stuff for us, then automatically we jump to AI equals cheating. And if we see AI as a potential partner in learning, then we can actually see AI now as there's not alliteration here, unfortunately, but it's AI as a learning aid as opposed to a cheating aid. So that kind of mindset shift from cheating to learning. And the final mindset shift, I think, is around shifting. If we can shift from that mindset of cheating to learning, then we can maybe shift from a mindset of having to police everything that students do, so ban, block, detect, deny, restrict, to a mindset of possibility. So what can we now do with AI because it's here to help us, and what can our students do as well?
Lots of P's. I love that. I love an alliteration. Phil, I don't know whether you like potatoes or not, but I do know that your roots are in Germany. So I was going to give it a good guess.
I can cook them.
And while you can cook them and your parents were growing them,
I'll eat them.
will eat them. You were busy clogging up a phone line as a kid in the old days when we used to dial up. And you were the first person to do a tech qualification alongside regular school. So you've been a nerd for a long time. Yeah, great. You came back to Australia with your wife and 2 kids to take this role up, the one that you're in now. What will you have achieved in the next 3 years that will make you and your 76-year-old teacher dad proud?
I'll try to answer without tears. What I think, I feel so privileged to even be able to sit here and to be in that role and to enable Macquarie University and our 45,000 students, 3,500 staff, to achieve something extraordinary, and using that tectonic shift that we're sitting on here and the opportunities. So in 3 years, I will be proud if we have given all our students the confidence and skills to navigate this environment, to know how to use AI responsibly, how to be competitive in the workforce, because they bring the skills they need when they need it to their employers. Secondly, for our staff, I'm going to be proud within 3 years, every staff member has had the chance to explore how AI, and building on what you've said before, how to explore collaborating with AI to enhance and augment their work and not feel threatened by it. Because I truly believe that if we empower our people, if we empower our staff, that this will turn fear and potential hesitation into opportunity. And thereby, we have made AI real. We've made it accessible. We've created a culture of confidence and innovation that will unlock things that we can't think about right now. We have seen where the frontier is. We're in there. We're leading towards a world where AI becomes a partner. And we've heard it here before, where AI just becomes a thing that we use and we can work with, and we understand how to do that responsibly. I think that would make me proud. And if my dad would be here, he's a 76 by then 79-year-old teacher who refuses to retire. So he's still teaching. He's 3 classes at school every year. Can barely make it to school, but he's there. And he would probably understand only half of what I'm doing anyway, but he would nod and smile and say that's what the education industry needed and was waiting for many, many years, because times have changed, and it's up to us.
Perfect. Stop before you cry. Audience, I've got a favour to ask. Phil, give me that microphone. Pick up your camera, turn around, do a selfie with the audience. This is for Phil's dad. Are you ready? Wave and cheer, everybody. Hi, Phil's dad.
Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, thank the panel. All done. Over to you.
Thanks. We've got a couple of questions from the audience. In fact, you've actually named some. Thank you. People are like, we really want to hear you, Kelly. Questions from the audience. Marcia is going to ask in a moment if there are any in the room. Wanted to start first with Danny and then go to Susan. Coolest use of AI you've seen in education?
Our National Centre for Cultural Competence have built an AI AI agent which converses with people and has really difficult cultural conversations with them in order to try and increase their cultural competence. So that's quite an exciting thing.
Yeah, love that. Susan?
Can you repeat your question? I feel like I'm going to cry about it. Sorry.
If you need a moment, we can come back to you.
No.
Yeah. Coolest use of AI you've seen in education?
La Trobe.
You get a raise.
I think US are really ahead of the game, right? Hear from all the Americans on every single panel, I feel like, Jesus, we need to catch up. And this makes us like very pumped, and like all the keywords up on the screen for the day. Make educators cool again, let's catch up, let's collaborate with all the US partners or rivals or UK partners on the great cases, and let's work together and swap some of the notes, share some of the best practice, just like today, and come back to HEDx next year.
I feel like we should end there, but we won't. Thanks, Suzanne. Jason, coolest use of AI you've seen in education?
Don't know if it's coolest, but it was certainly the most terrifying. I was sitting in the back of a cab with somebody who's like Danny, who spent thousands of hours using these tools, and in 30 seconds on their phone, they created a complete deep-faked video of themselves with a beautiful background saying all sorts of things that they never actually said, and for all intents and purposes, I had no idea that it wasn't that person that was in that video. He then explained to me that he also made one of those and showed his wife, who also didn't know that it was him for about the first minute or so. So that's when I thought, oh my God, first I thought, oh my God, we're in deep trouble here. Secondly, I thought that is just amazing. Like in 30 seconds on your phone to be able to produce something like that was just incredible. Thanks
for that, Jason. Phil?
I'll say something that we haven't heard about today yet, and that's, well, we've established that I've been a nerd for a long time, so I also played videos and video games for a long time. There is a specific tool that one of the faculties is trying out at Macquarie on a trial basis, or one educator, that is a simulation environment where students can be placed in, was developed for role-playing games, and he repurposed it to have that in the law faculty or in the law school to simulate customer and client interaction. And it's this little build your own adventure kind of thing, where one of the main limitations in just using ChatGPT or something like that is they overshare. So having a simulation with a client is hard because they give you all the answers. But with that tool, it is a natural language processing module in there where you only get information if you ask for it. And it's a massive setup, and he worked on it for a year and a half, but I've seen it in action, and it was really cool too. The students really had to navigate their negotiations and conversation with their hypothetical clients, and it's unsure where the outcome is. And that, I think, was very cool to see the learning that is very individual and very reflective, because then they could talk about, oh, I didn't know that this information were available. How did you get it? And then having that class conversation, which was really engaging and valuable. That's one cool use case.
I love it, and it led to human connection. Sam, there's audience demand. We know you're the facilitator. However, coolest AI use you've seen?
I was at a conference last week, and Danny was there too, and the fabulous thing about it was K-12 and vet and higher ed, and it's so great to be in a room full of people who are doing K-12 teaching. We were all talking about like concepts and theories, and the teachers were like, well, we did this, we've done this, and we did this. And one teacher is using an AI tool for language development, and the students are making their own songs in different languages, and the AI tool is giving them kind of grammar and pronunciation hints, and so they make a song, they record a song, and then it breaks it down into different pieces and gives them back kind of hints about how to pronounce things in a slightly better way. And it's just cool, right? It's like SingStar at school in Japanese. I thought that was really cool.
So Kelly and I have called ourselves the backup singers and dancers, so I think that gives us our cue. Let's go, yeah. Are there any final questions in the audience? Gail, do you want to ask a question? Come on. She'll have a good one. Okay, great. Do you mind passing the microphone on?
I think you're getting the microphone.
Oh, she's called me out. I'm in trouble. I was also at the conference last week, so got to see everybody talk. I think, you know, as we sit back, I guess, and we all now reflect, and there's just so much to take in, and I guess what I haven't really heard a lot about was, you know, obviously we're paid by the government. I think you talked about taxpayers' money for us to actually implement all this great work. What role do you, or what are you seeing that's happening in the government around supporting all of this work?
I can probably talk to that. Many of you will be aware that there was a parliamentary inquiry last year with one of the House committees. There were a whole pile of recommendations that came out of that, none of which have been implemented at this point because obviously we have an election very shortly and there's caretaker mode and all sorts of stuff around that. There was also a priority on getting the schools funding agreement in place as part of, you know, something that they wanted to get done before the election. So at the moment, although there are a lot of really great recommendations in there, including establishing a National AI and Education Research Centre, from the government perspective at least there's not much happening federally, but certainly, as many of you will be aware, the states have been quite active. South Australia, New South Wales, Queensland is now getting on board where they're doing quite wide-scale implementations across whole school sectors. We know that there's a lot of private schools that were already well ahead of the curve on this. So the governments, the state education departments and curriculum authorities have been really active because they've kind of had to be on this because the schools are kind of jumping ahead. So there's a lot of stuff, and I think this has been a theme through some of the things that we've heard today. There's a lot of stuff happening in K-12 that I think we can learn a lot from, because I think for us there's some sort of blockages at the moment that are kind of stopping that sort of government action bit happening. If you haven't seen the report from the parliamentary inquiry, it's worth having a look at. I think there are some pretty good recommendations in here, and let's hope that they get implemented by whoever the minister is in June.
Anyone else want to comment? That was pretty comprehensive, impressive answer.
I'll just quickly add to it. I think Danny and a lot of you guys probably contribute to it. Last year in August, Australian government launched a white paper called Study Buddy or Influencers, and it's 185 page of the report. I highly recommend if you have time and if you have trouble to sleep at night, have a look. But I'll give you the too long don't read version. The top one recommendation is saying it did encourage higher education trying to adopt the Gen AI in their system. Whether how to implement it, it's up to us. On the flip side, for the UK taxpayers' money, last year we also launched something called AI Action Plan, and then we found a different scholarship among, for example, Cambridge, Oxford University. So when I go back to government, we are going to bring the delegation over. We're going to share some of the work we have done here in Australia and share and do the partnership with British university together and say what is alliance looks like and how do we collaborate across the Commonwealth countries. So another trade mission. I hope some of you, I will definitely talk to some of you and hopefully you will be joining the trade mission coming up soon.
Thank you. Excuse me. Martin's given me the look several times, so could you join me in thanking this panel?
Thank you so much to Sam and all on that final panel for giving us such an inspiring set of ideas, provocations and controversy to the end.